how to draft from each spot in your 12-team league. We've got a pick-by-pick series breaking this down on the website, cbssports.com/fantasy. Very informative stuff. Check it out. But right now, we'll give it to you on the podcast. So we've got the whole gang here. I'm Adam Azer, joined by Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg, Heath Cummings, and Ben Gretsch. And the four of them did a draft where they each had 3 picks, and they each constructed a team from 3 different draft spots. And we'll talk about the strategies that they used. Want to remind you, we have a mailbag coming up tomorrow, so get your questions in via Apple Podcasts and via email, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Jamie, I know this is something that we've been rolling out on the website, this pick-by-pick series. Pretty useful. What can you tell the people about this series?
Well, it's something we've done for years. It's really, I think a good exercise in what you would do if you get that draft slot. A lot of times we get the question is, what do I do if I have pick 5? What do I do if I have pick 10? And this is just an outline you can follow. Obviously, everybody's going to have a different take if they had that own draft spot to manage themselves. But, it's just, I think, a blueprint of here's some players that could be available. Here are some options that you could, consider. And I enjoy reading it from everybody's perspective. I think, Ben, Dave, and Heath give a great outline of the picks that they, are in charge of. So it's a really good exercise, once you get that draft spot, when you find out what your draft order is.
So Jamie had picks 1, 5, and 9. Heath had picks 2, 6, and 10. Dave had 3, 7, and 11. And Ben had 4, 8, and 12. And guys, we're all here today. That's cool. I like it. 5-man show. Because nobody wanted me to be part of this pick-by-pick series, so I'm just moderating. Anyway, we got a lot of news and notes to get to as well.
Is that you asking to be part of the next pick-by-pick series? You want to have a couple of teams?
Do you know how to write?
What? Yeah, I didn't know he knew how to write.
What not to do from pick number 2.
Do I know how to write? My writing is really pretty awful. You should let me write just so you can make fun of me, because I know how much everybody likes to make fun of me.
Well,
let me write an article.
So you contribute to our magazine for a similar process that we go through where, I ask you guys each a question about your team, and I have to do the most editing with that.
No, well, that can't be true. That can't be true. All right, listen, DeAndre Hopkins back at practice. That's good. But update on a couple of backfields here. Joe Mixon, on HQ, we talked to someone today, right, that said Joe Mixon's passing game role, his role in the passing game, not necessarily going to increase, that Giovanni Bernard's going to, still have that role, right? Did I get that right? Yes.
Yes.
I got it
right. Tyler Dragon of the Cincinnati Enquirer said 30 to 40 passes is what he would expect for Mixon. He said just the way that Zach Taylor likes to use his running backs, that he's going to use Giovanni Bernard still in that role. So if you are not expecting Mixon to take that big leap, then this is something that you're going to buy into. But Tyler also said that he's going to get a lot of work on the ground, and they're going to lean on him as their workhorse guy. So, he's a back end of the first round pick.
From Zach Stevens, a tweet from him, a Broncos beat writer. Fangio on Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. Quote, I anticipate both playing enough where we really don't have to designate a starter. Heath, your reaction to that?
There's been a lot of buzz this week about improvements that Philip Lindsay's made as a pass catcher. And I think the way we've all kind of approached this is they might split on the ground, but Melvin Gordon's going to catch 50 or 60 passes, so it won't matter as much. If they're just splitting, it's bad news for Melvin Gordon in round 3, and it's amazing news for Philip Lindsay in round 10. Those two ADPs probably need to be closer than they are.
Does anybody buy that? Because I thought pass protection was really the big issue for Philip Lindsay.
Philip Lindsay was terrible in pass protection, but according to Pro Football Focus, Melvin Gordon was only nominally better. Royce Freeman was actually the best of the 3 in terms of pass protection. But Lindsay would have to make incredible strides in the passing game in order to take some of that role away from Melvin Gordon. Melvin's good as a pass catcher.
I guess my question would be, because we're kind of just taking the idea that Ronald Jones has made these huge leaps on third down. Is it more likely that Ronald Jones has than Philip Lindsay has?
Yes.
Why?
Well,
because, we've seen Ronald Jones have a fairly efficient year as a pass catcher. He just had one last year. Caught a high amount of his catches, had a nice receiving average, and he continued to work on it during the offseason. We know that Lindsay did too, but before this offseason, Lindsey wasn't as prolific as a pass catcher. I think he had 6 drops, something like that. So he wasn't nearly as efficient as Ronald Jones was.
One thing I would note on Lindsey, he is a bad pass protector, but they threw him a lot of passes per route that he ran. So like he would play on passing downs only when he was going to get out into a route. And they were throwing him some like they were splitting him out and throwing him some like wide receiver screens late last year. But yeah, I've mentioned before the yards per out run stat, how there's a way you can break that out to targets per route run. Lindsey, very strong targets per route run for a running back. So it might not be that he plays a ton on passing downs, but when he's out there, they might actually be designing more plays for him than a lot of other backs in the league.
And it could be he's playing on non-passing situations where he doesn't have to face a blitz, or he doesn't have to face a situation where he is just asked to pass block. So if he's out in a route, then he can show off potentially what his ability is.
There was a report that Melvin Gordon was struggling to like get used to the altitude in Denver. And I noticed something else. SiriusXM goes to training camp every year. They didn't go to training camp this year because, COVID. But every time they talked about, all the great additions and the team, they never mentioned Melvin, and they always talked about Lindsey. And that kind of resonated with me. I wonder if there's something up there that maybe Lindsey's going to certainly have a bigger role than we all anticipated.
Nick Chubb doing well as he recovers from a concussion. Cliff Kingsbury said this about Chase Edmonds. We all feel like he's a starting running back in this league. All right. Some Chase Edmonds buzz. A lot of Bryce Love buzz as Ron Rivera praised Bryce Love. Jamie, is Bryce Love going to be one of the biggest draft risers before it's all said and done?
I think so, and I think he should. You're looking at a 35-year-old starter ahead of him that is clearly not the future. So at some point, I think they got to give Love an opportunity to show his chops. And the other guy in Antonio Gibson is, going to be on passing down situations more times than not, or used as a pass catcher more times than not. So Love is, has the ability to be a featured back. We saw it in college, before his knee injury. And I think, we had this conversation on HQ earlier on Thursday. There's like a handful of guys that once you get toward round 8 through 10, that, Love, I think Damian Harris is going to be a draft riser as well. Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, healthy or not, Chase Edmonds, Alexander Madison. I don't know if Tony Pollard qualifies just yet, but maybe he's in that group also. But just, and I may be missing a guy or two, but just those guys, and maybe it's the Justin Jackson, Josh Kelly winner. Those guys are going to be the premier stash candidates that you can draft. And in some cases, it's injury related. Edmonds sort of toes the line. Madison, we know. But Scott, Ben's talked about, what his role should be. I agree. Harris, clearly there's an opening right now for him to be special. Love is in that same category. That if these guys get featured roles, my gosh, they could be special.
And Adam, it's training camp, and we're not going to get preseason games, so we're all like working off some rust. So I say this with love, and just to try to help you as you move into the season. You don't have to say Bryce Love buzz. You could just say a lot of Bryce Love.
Yeah, Bryce Love. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Heath, that's kind of your game. So I will defer to you on those types of puns, but all right, I'll work on that. Tyreek Hill hurt his hamstring. He tweaked his ham. No, it didn't work. But he hurt his hamstring. We'll keep an eye on that. Tyreek Hill. Dez Bryant is working out for the Ravens today. Any scenario where you guys would be drafting Dez Bryant if the Ravens signed him?
No.
Okay. 14-team league, 16-team league? Yeah.
Possibly like a 20 round draft, possibly, sure.
Aldon Smith having a good camp for the Cowboys, pass rusher that they brought in, before he dealt with some issues. He was one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL.
They've got a hell of a pass rush building there.
Yeah, potentially.
They got him, Everson Griffin, DeMarcus Lawrence. They're coming along nicely. I wish Gerald McCoy had stayed healthy.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. You wish he was healthy.
They need a big body in between those guys.
They have Dontari Poe, but they certainly could have used Gerald McCoy. KJ Hamler, rookie wide receiver for the Broncos. He's out a couple weeks with a hamstring injury. And just two more news items here. McCole Hardman is expected to remain as the primary kick and punt returner, according to The Athletic. Ben, does that bother you at all as someone who's very high on McCole Hardman? Do you think that takes him off the field for the snaps that we want him on the field for?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, it might take him off a little bit, but the idea with him was always this hope that he'll at least get somewhere in the range of like 60% to 70% of the snaps. I don't think he is probably somebody that's going to play every single snap offensively. There were some games where he was playing well below 50%, and he really only played above 50% when Tyreek Hill was injured. So this injury for Tyreek Hill now potentially opens up a huge role for Hardman. But if Hill's fine, you're just hoping that Hardman's out there enough. And there's plenty of guys that do the kick and punt returning and still play over 50% of offensive snaps. So he can still get the bump that we're hoping for.
Jalen Reagor's also being used in that same role for the Eagles. At least they're trying him out like that. Preston Williams is doing that for the Dolphins. So, you're starting to see some guys that, clearly they're good with the ball in their hands, so that's why I think you want them in that particular role. But Hardman, it's funny. We talked about this with the Tyreek Hill injury, and Sammy Watkins missing time apparently with was a hamstring or quad or something. I forget what it was. But he's missed several practices, according to Adam Teicher. That if this happens where Tyreek Hill's out for an extended period of time, Ben's going to win a lot of leagues because of all the Mecole Hardman shares that he has.
Looks like Jeff Legwold of ESPN said that Melvin Gordon hurt his ribs during practice today.
Oh boy. Man, we're getting
And
a lot of
had to leave early.
injuries. Jeez, this is rough. Oh, I hope this is not a trend.
Yeah, as I told Jamie earlier today, at least we're not hearing this player's been put on the reserve COVID list. That player's been put on the reserve COVID list. We still have a positivity rate well below 1% in the NFL. So hats off to the league for what they're doing.
And Heath wrote a big story about this next news item. You can see it all over the web. Robbie Gould, Niners kicker, he said that kicking in stadiums with no fans is going to be different because the fans usually knock down the wind. So I'll just let you read the analysis.
Just draft kickers who kick indoors. That's the only kicker analysis I've ever done.
Well, the air conditioning there, the fans is typically knocked down. But all right, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So we got the mailbag tomorrow. Leave your questions in the Apple Podcast reviews. They'll be answered on the show. You can also email us, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. The Stitcher app. I told you about that yesterday as well. Check it out. It's a great place to get any podcast you want, but sports right now, they're featuring a lot of sports podcasts, including fantasy baseball today and Pick 6. You can build playlists on Stitcher. You can download it for free in the App Store. And as we do this draft, how to draft from each spot, please check the link in the episode description. I put a link in there so you can follow along with the picks as they were made. Let's get started right now. Remember, click that link in the episode description and check out the picks as they go. So, all right, round one. Everybody, you want to just announce your pick? We'll just go round one. Just say your pick. Jamie, you get the first pick, then Heath, then Dave, then Ben, and so on. Jamie, you're on the clock.
Robbie Gould, 1.1.
But there's no fans, Jamie. The wind is going to, screw things up. All right.
Christian McCaffrey.
With the second pick in the August PPR pick-by-pick draft, I select Saquon Barkley.
Zeke.
And I took Kamara.
This is going to take forever if we do this.
No, just for round one. That's it. Just round one. Jamie, keep going.
Dalvin Cook at 5.
Michael Thomas out of New Orleans Saints.
Clyde.
Oh, you're not going to say his last name.
Everybody knows there's only one Clyde on the planet.
We did this before the Miles Sanders injury news. I took Miles Sanders 8. I probably would take Devontae Adams 8 if we were doing this today.
I took Devontae Adams at 9 before the Devontae Adams injury, and I probably would still take Devontae Adams at 9.
Okay. I took Austin Eckler at 10, and I would have taken him at 7.
Joe Mixon, 11.
And I took Kenyon Drake at 12.
Okay. So, again, round one, your top 5 were typical. Heath took Michael Thomas, 6. Then Clyde, Miles, Devontae, Austin, Joe Mixon, and Kenyon Drake. That was your top 12. All right, so let's go back now. Ben, you took. I was very disappointed that none of you started running back. By the way, with a late pick. I have to yell at you for that, but so be it. Ben, you're on the clock with the 13th pick, and you just took Kenyon Drake. And I didn't say the format here. This is full PPR, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a flex, 1 quarterback, tight end, DST, whatever.
No DST.
All right, fine. Who cares? So 15 rounds.
We assume that people know what to do with kickers and DSTs if they draft them.
Ben, you had Kenyon Drake. What did you do in round 2 with the 13th pick? What was your strategy?
Yeah, so you made an interesting comment about going running back at the end, and I think you can do that because wide receiver is deep, but especially in this format where there's 3 receivers in a flex, I want to flex a wide receiver. And if I do that, my number 1 isn't coming till the 3-4 turn, and my number 1 and number 2. And probably I'm not going to get as deep into the receivers as I wanted to. So for me, I actually would disagree. I don't want to go running back. I don't like the compounded risk of 2 running backs early. I want to get right into the receivers and then build that out deep into my flex spot as quickly as possible. So I have really explosive receivers all the way through those 4 slots. So I went Drake, Tyreek Hill. Obviously now Tyreek Hill, we don't know about his status. That was more news today. So I'm really hitting on all cylinders here with Miles Sanders and Tyreek Hill in this draft.
Well, those are 2 different teams, though. Just
2 different teams.
Kenyon Drake and Tyreek Hill is team 12. Team 11, Dave, you took Joe Mixon in round 1. Why didn't you go running back?
Because I knew that I'd be able to get one of Drake, Hill, and Julio, and I think those guys are just amazing football talents. Want to have them on my fantasy team. I was kind of secretly hoping that Ben would go receiver, and that Drake would make it back to me, and then I would have started with 2 RBs. But Julio just fell. Easy pick in early round 2. Not overthinking it.
Okay, so you go with Mixon and Julio, and I guess it's worth noting that after round 1, Kenyon Drake goes with the 12th pick. The running backs that were still available that are going to go in this range are Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, James Conner went in round 2. None of those guys have a certainty for a lot of catches. So maybe that is why.
Most of those guys are flat out not going to catch a lot of passes.
Yep.
Like it's not that they don't have a certainty. Other than like the names you said, I guess Jones and Connor at the end of the round have a hope for 40 or 50 catches.
Right.
But the rest of them, there's really not even a hope for that.
Right. Okay. All right. So team 12 is Drake and Tyreek Hill. Team 11 is Mixon and Julio Jones. Heath, Austin Eckler in round 1. And what'd you do in round 2?
I said when I took Eckler, I would take him at 7. I was lying. He's my number 8 overall player, but my number 9 player is Travis Kelce, and he was still there, so I took him. And one of the reasons that I like getting Kelce here is I'm not going to take Mark Andrews in the 3rd round, and I really don't like taking Mark Andrews that early in the 4th round. There's still generally some really good wide receivers left, or you're taking one of those veteran running backs. And so I'm probably not taking Andrews. I'm definitely not getting Kittle. This is really the only shot that I'm going to get at having a great tight end.
That's interesting. And yeah, just to flash forward to round 4, Heath, with this team of Eckler, Kelce, he took Robert Woods. And I know if you had to choose between Robert Woods and Mark Andrews, you're taking Woods, right?
In full PPR for sure, yeah.
All right, Jamie, with the 9th pick, you took Devontae Adams. And in round 2, you took
Josh Jacobs. I was thrilled to have him there at that spot. I think, he's clearly crazy about catching 60 passes. So when he catches 75, I'm going to be thrilled about getting him in round 2. But I do think his receptions go up. I think he's a borderline 1st round pick for me. So I was, like Heath said about getting Travis Kelce, I was very happy to get Josh Jacobs that spot.
So again, 3 receiver league with a flex and full PPR. And you took Devontae Adams in round 1, Jamie, with the 9th pick. Did you give any thought to taking a wide receiver? If Kelce had fallen, would you have taken Kelce there? Why did you go with the running back?
I like I said, I think Jacobs has top 10 upside. I think he's going to challenge for the rushing lead. I think he's going to be more involved in the passing game. So if he gets north of 40 catches and does what I expect him to do on the ground, then I think this is qualifies as a steal. So
okay, all right, let me rephrase. Right? Because we already talked about Ben, Dave, and Heath, their 2nd round picks, but all of them took running backs in round 1. So I know, you took.
I did not consider going wide receiver here. The only way I would have done that is if Tyreek or Julio fell.
What about Kelce? What if he had been there?
I would have considered Kelce, but I like Jacobs better.
All right, there we go. Miles Sanders to Ben in round 1 with the 8th pick. In round 2, what did you do?
I went with DJ Moore, and in our write-ups on the site, one of the cool things that we do is our favorite pick, the pick we might regret, and the pick that can make or break our team. I picked this as the pick I might regret, which is interesting because I love DJ Moore. Everyone knows that. I have him as my wide receiver 5. I have pretty much all off season, and I took him here at wide receiver 5. But I did strongly consider Derrick Henry, which is kind of blasphemous for me. I considered George Kittle as well for a lot of the reasons that Heath said. And but really honestly, more to the point of, you know, why I might regret it. I passed on Chris Godwin. I passed on DeAndre Hopkins. If Moore's not what I think he is, I'm going to regret this pick pretty obviously. So I'm taking him pretty much at his ceiling where I have him ranked above ADP. It's an aggressive pick for sure.
So Miles Sanders, DJ Moore, and then this team, the 8th pick, spoiler alert, in round 4, you took Mark Andrews, right in the middle of round 4, basically. So who's the wide receiver that went after Mark Andrews that you would have taken? Thielen, Cooper, McLaurin, Metcalf, Hilton, Chark? Like, who would your favorite wide receiver have been there?
Probably Cooper, even though I don't take him a lot. He is the highest ranked of those.
Okay, so would you rather have Cooper and Kittle or Andrews and Moore?
See, I think I'd rather have Andrews and Moore. I mean, but it is interesting. You noted Woods for Heath at the 402 or 403. Woods is in a tier up for me from Cooper. So maybe if Woods could have slipped, or one of these other receivers that had gone at the turn, you know, I took AJ Brown to my other team. So if AJ Brown falls back to me, maybe I take AJ Brown and Kittle over Moore and Andrews. I think there are scenarios where I would have rather have taken Kittle there.
Gotcha. All right. Finally, we get a team that goes with 2 running backs with its first 2 picks. That's the team 7, which is Dave's team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in round 1, and in round 2,
Derrick Henry. So, you know, he's the best available running back that was left, and I'm going to be sensitive to when I'm up pretty much every pick. What's the running back situation going to look like when I'm up again next? And I knew that if I didn't take a running back here, if I had gone with Kittle or DeAndre Hopkins or Chris Godwin, my best case scenario is that somebody like Melvin Gordon is there for me in round 3. And I figure that Derrick Henry, as long as he stays on the field, and that's an if, but if he stays on the field, I think he's got a chance to put up modestly good numbers for PPR. If by some miracle the Titans wake up and say, wow, we should like use this amazing bruiser of a back in different ways so that we're not this, you know, lame one-dimensional offense that occasionally throws to AJ Brown, that would be amazing. And that would enhance his value, and that would make him a steal in the middle of round 2. But we've talked about this. We haven't really seen it from the Titans yet. So there's no reason to buy into Derrick Henry all of a sudden being a 50-catch running back. But between him and Edwards-Helaire, I think I've got all the upside at running back in this draft.
Okay. And you would not have even gotten Melvin Gordon in round 3. He did not make it back to your 3rd pick.
That would have sucked.
Heath, team 6, you took Michael Thomas in round 1. Why did you not take a running back in round 2?
Because Dave took Derrick Henry. Like, really, that's the main reason. I if this had been couple weeks ago, I might have taken Nick Chubb, and it wasn't necessarily the concussion that kept me from taking Nick Chubb. It's the building buzz in Cleveland that Kareem Hunt's going to have an even bigger role than I was anticipating. And so I just don't feel like the problem with Chubb is I never really thought he had any chance of catching 40 passes, which we talk about that with Jacobs and Henry. Now I don't know that he has a chance at 300 carries either. If he doesn't get either one of those, then he's not worth a mid-second round pick, or he's just barely worth a mid-second round pick. So I took George Kittle.
All right, you take Kittle. So now in retrospect, McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke, Kamara, Cook, Edwards-Helaire, Eckler, Mixon, Drake. I'm losing count, guys. That's 9, right? And then Jacobs 10, and then Henry 11. And then you took Kittle. In retrospect, with this team 6, since you did not get a top 11 running back, which it appears you want in this format, do you think if you could do it again, you would have taken a running back in round 1 instead of Michael Thomas?
No chance. I don't think that the running backs from that, like the difference between Michael Thomas and the running backs after Dalvin Cook for me is way too big to consider that.
They're too risky, right? Is that how you look at it?
It's not even that they're too risky. It's that I don't think it's fair to expect any of those running backs. We expect Michael Thomas is going to regress, but he scored probably 40 to 50 more fantasy points than I think it would be fair to expect from any of the running backs left.
I think I miscounted. I think it was actually 12 running backs that were off the board, not 11.
He is definitely safer than those running backs. I don't think I can craft an argument that in full PPR, any of the running backs left have a bigger ceiling than Michael Thomas.
So it really comes down to how you feel about your first round pick when you're in the middle of round 1. And if you like playing it safe, there's nothing wrong with taking Michael Thomas.
It's not playing it
safe.
He's
going to Devontae Adams. Well, sure it is.
He outscored every running back.
The upside. He doesn't have the same upside as some of the other running backs.
He outscored every running back besides Christian McCaffrey last year.
He did. That's true. But does that mean he's going to do it again?
It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do it again, but doesn't mean that these guys that have never done it are going to do it this year.
Fair point, but I would say the ceiling is still higher, even in full PPR for the running backs, particularly because they can catch the ball. And that's on top of running, and they could score 2 different ways. Thomas isn't rushing for any touchdowns. That can't help him. And it's the position scarcity, I think, is real, and people don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah.
So really, to me, it comes down to if you want to play it safe, take Thomas, and that's cool. If you want to take a chance, and listen, it could go very badly for Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Miles Sanders, or for Dalvin Cook. But if you go with those guys, I think their ceiling is a little bit better than Michael Thomas's.
And I pulled back on Thomas. I don't remember how many points he scored last year, but I've pulled back 15% on what he scored last year, and I still have him projected to score more fantasy points than any of the running backs that are left by a pretty good margin.
Yeah, he gets 150 catches?
No. What I was going to say is that if he gets 150 targets, which is what he got 2 and 3 years ago, and he has the same efficiency, he still would have been the number 1 wide receiver last year. I don't know where he would have ranked among running backs. But look, he wasn't the 2nd pick. He was the 6th pick. Obviously, everybody agrees almost everybody agrees those top 5 running backs have more upside than Thomas. Let's move on. Jamie, so Nick Chubb was there for you in round 2. That's who you took with the Dalvin Cook team 5. Dalvin Cook round 1, Nick Chubb round 2. So there's another team that's running back.
Yeah, same thing. I just the best player on the board. I think he's got a chance to compete for the rushing title. He's going to lose in the passing game, as we saw with Kareem Hunt. But we had Nathan Zagura, who is a former friend of the show, former colleague of ours. He is the senior media broadcaster for the Browns. And the one thing he said, which I think we talk about a lot, is there's going to be enough opportunities for these running backs to both play in both areas. And he's going to still be involved in the passing game, Chubb. He may not be as involved as he was before while Kareem Hunt was suspended, but I think we're maybe overlooking a little bit just how much he's going to maybe come off the field in passing situations. So I still think he's going to have in that 35, 40 catch range potentially. And so I'm still encouraged by Chubb in this
That's
spot.
a lot.
I don't think he's a first round pick in PPR.
That's a big jump because he had 11 in 8 games with Hunt last year.
Yep.
But they basically just didn't use him in that role.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, but the problem is now the Browns are just, I think they're going to end up just using both guys in every role.
Right.
And you're just not going to know when it's going to be Chubb and when it's going to be Hunt. I don't think there's one thing that either back can do, supremely better than the other. Chubb might be a better overall talent, and certainly he's faster, but I don't think he's leaving Kareem Hunt in the dust. I think the Browns really love what they have in Kareem Hunt, and they're going to use them both a lot.
Okay, the next pick is Ben Gretches. He had the 4th pick. He took Alvin Kamara. And your 2nd round pick was?
Chris Godwin.
Okay, yeah. Not much explanation needed there.
Nope.
The best running backs available were Aaron Jones and James Conner. Kittle and Kelsey were off the board, so Chris Godwin. Dave, you had Ezekiel Elliott again, and then in round 2 with the 3rd pick, pick 3 was Ezekiel Elliott, and in round 2 you took?
I took DeAndre Hopkins because he was the last elite tier receiver on the board, at least in my opinion, elite tier receiver. And I love a lot of the running backs that were left. I assume one of them would make it back to me in round 3. So I figured, take the best receiver now and get a running back in round 3.
I got it. Heath, man. Team 2. Just tell me before we even get it. How do you feel about Team 2?
Really super weird. I think it's the only team this year that I've started with 3 running backs. And so it was uncomfortable. But at the same time, and we talked about this on yesterday's show, I think, and there was a running back taken right after I took James Conner and Chris Carson at the 2-3 turn. And
you had the 2nd pick, but right. There were 2 picks in between.
Yes. Right. And I think Aaron Jones is right in that group. But I think there's a big drop off at running back after that. Ben thinks that drop off happens after Nick Chubb. I think it happens a couple of backs later. And so I took the plunge.
And it totally ruined me. I was incensed. And this is a mock. I thought for sure that Heath would have taken at least one receiver with one of those picks in rounds 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why did you settle for Melvin Gordon if you don't love him?
I at the time I did like him.
Hold on, we'll get there, guys.
I still kind of do. I still kind of do.
4 days later.
Ourselves.
Well, no, I mean the report that came out about
I know,
Philip Lindsay
yeah.
and all that makes me, a little squeamish about it. But he would have been the running back I would have taken anyway. Like if we were doing it today, I'm not going to take Le'Veon.
But why do you have to take a running back though? That's the question.
Because I don't really love the running backs that are going to be left for me in round 4. This goes back to what I was saying when I think we were talking about where I was at with Team 7 with Edwards, Helaire, and Henry.
Sure, but I mean, not to skip ahead, but you took DK Metcalf in round 4 and then forced the three of your next 4 picks for running backs. Like those 3 guys are combined better than what Melvin Gordon's going to give you. And
yeah, but I can't start them all combined. I can only
but you
one
can
at a
start
time.
one of them and you get a better receiver there.
I guess you're right. I could have.
Well, yeah. All right. So it got interesting. So pick 2, Saquon Barkley. Heath took James Conner, and then Jamie with pick 1 had Christian McCaffrey. And what did you do with the 2-3 turn?
I was surprised to see Aaron Jones there. I'm clearly I think we all have the same sentiment that he's going to regress, but to what level is really the question here. And like Keith said, there's a drop off. I think it's Aaron Jones is where the drop starts. So, you've heard me say he's the bridge running back, but to get him at the end of round 2, I thought was good value. I had planned on going receiver, but when Jones was there, it was just an easy player to take.
Okay. And then you took Juju. So
yeah, another easy selection there.
McCaffrey, Jones, Juju. And then Heath goes Barkley, James Conner, and then in round 3, Chris Carson. So team 2 starts with 3 running backs. And I'm glad you did this, Heath, because I know very, very clearly I will never start a 3 wide receiver PPR league with a flex with 3 running backs.
Can I chime in here real quick though? Because there's something about this that I absolutely love. And this is from Mr. I would never do this to start a draft. But my favorite thing about this, and it's brilliant, is that Heath took 1 more running back, exactly 1 more running back the rest of the draft. If you're starting your draft, running back, and you're committing that much draft capital to that position, you need those guys to stay healthy. You need them to be good. And you're probably going to be great if they are. But then don't commit a bunch of bench spots to running backs. Go out there and make sure you have receiver depth. Make sure you have a potential difference maker tight end, which he took 2 to make sure he can cover that. He got a couple of good quarterbacks. I love that he finished this draft with 4 running backs total.
The only thing I would disagree with, I wouldn't have taken Minshew. I would have taken, I don't know where Benny Snell went or somebody, just in case. Like, just take one more guy just to kind of cover yourself a little bit. Like, a 5th running back to me makes more sense than a 2nd quarterback on this roster.
That's a good,
especially if that
point,
5th running back is the insurance policy for one of.
It doesn't have to be the insurance policy, but I was just looking late.
But it would be nice.
I was just looking in the Minshew range. Like, I took McFarland 1 pick before him, I think, or 1 pick after him. Like, you don't have to take a handcuff, but somebody that if it helps your roster a little bit more, like, you could use that running back depth more so than the quarterback depth.
And I did on every team in this draft, because I've talked about it. I took 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends, because it's a 15-round draft with no kicker or no defense. And I think that's deep enough where this season you need to do that.
Okay.
But you're right. I would have a little more security if I'd done that. And to Ben's point, my thought is, if Carson and Connor stay healthy, it's going to be a really good team. If Carson and Connor get hurt, it doesn't matter how many backup running backs I have. My team's going to suck.
Your wide
I
receivers.
disagree. I don't think that's the case at all.
Hold on. His wide receivers is like, look, if we're sitting here looking at the team, we know what it is. His team is Barkley. His team 2, Barkley, Connor, Carson, T.Y. Hilton, Keenan Allen, Julian Edelman. Preston Williams might be your flex. Evan Ingram.
No, Carson's his flex.
Carson.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Right. Sorry, my bad. Barkley, Connor, Carson, Hilton, Keenan Allen, Edelman, Evan Ingram.
He's playing
Carson
Williams
Wentz.
in the 6 games that Hilton will miss and the 7 games that Edelman will miss. That's
got a lot of injury
You
risk,
still
man.
need receiver depth,
Yeah,
though,
of course,
and it's a good
obviously.
thing he went and got that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's team 2. Team 3. So Dave, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Hopkins, and then you took Melvin Gordon in round 3, and you took him over Kenny Galladay. How could you take Melvin Gordon over Kenny Galladay?
Wanted that running back. Had to have that 2nd running back.
Dave, Ben's gonna tell you
I know
to
what
take
Ben's
better
gonna tell
players.
me.
Well, is this really what you're going to do? I mean, is Melvin Gordon good enough to go position scarcity over better player in terms of taking Gordon over Galladay?
I think he could be. It's just a matter of it happening that way in Denver. I mean, you lose sight of the fact that Melvin Gordon was regularly getting double-digit touchdowns, regularly was getting well over 1,000 total yards. I think he's got the potential to do that. And if Philip Lindsay, if this report had never come out, we wouldn't be second-guessing Melvin Gordon here much at all. I think we'd agree that he is a very good number 2 fantasy running back, and I think he still is, even if Philip Lindsay is going to take 10 to 12 carries. Well, I know that there's not going to be a running back that I love for me in round 4. I'm picking early in round 3.
But why?
If I take Kenny
Galladay,
what do you mean why? What's there not to understand?
If you
Who
don't
would I have taken there?
You don't,
Jamie, look at the draft results. No, fine. So let's say I took Galladay.
Yeah.
Who are the running backs that are left in late round 4?
Read them off. You rotate between Singletary or Mostert, and you're fine.
I think the idea would be that Metcalf would be your number 3 receiver.
Right.
Galladay'd be your number 2. Or
well, obviously that's what it would be if I had gone that route.
Or you could have taken Singletary in round 4 and your boy Ronald Jones in round 5 and had a running back 2 between the 2 of those.
Yeah, so you could have gone Zeke, Hopkins, Galladay, Singletary, Ronald Jones.
Ben looks like he wants to reach through the screen and choke Dave right now. Haven't
you been listening to anything I've said for 2 years? No, I mean, why is it so important, I guess, for you to have that good RB2 in this format? Full PPR, 3 receivers and a flex. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but tell me, why is that so important? Instead of just saying, okay, I got Zeke, he's my RB1, and I'm going to take 4 or 5 other running backs and hope one of them is my RB2.
I feel like I can find a receiver worthy of a draft spot anywhere in the draft. And I think that I can find a wide receiver who might not give me the week-to-week numbers of Kenny Galladay, but still good PPR weekly numbers later on in the draft. There are a lot of wide receivers that are pretty good in PPR. Are they elite level like Kenny Galladay? No. Okay, I'm probably going to give up some points there. But I can't say the same for running back. And you guys can tell me to take Devin Singletary and Ronald Jones, and I love that combo. And if I had known then what I know now, I probably would have done that. But I draft with too many people now that like Ronald Jones, so I can't guarantee myself that I'm going to get him every single time.
Fair enough.
Just in the way you built this team, though, like you only have 4 wide receivers.
Yeah, that's typically how I roll. I don't like to carry a lot of wide receivers, even in a league like this, Jamie, with 3 wide receivers in a flex, because I can find somebody that can get me 10 to 12 PPR points off the waiver wire most weeks. And this league's a little bit different because we went 15 rounds and we didn't draft any kickers or defenses. So I think if we actually played this league out, yeah, the talent pool on the waiver wire, it's going to be ugly. But in a normal league where you are drafting a defense and kickers, and there's going to be somebody there. And I'm confident that I can find receivers every week just to fill in those spots. Is it going to be a dominant spot? No, I'm hoping Melvin Gordon comes through. And I think Melvin Gordon can, if he's given the role that we've thought until today he would have had in Denver.
And in Dave's defense, as the kind of wide receiver guy, I mean, his point is the exact, it's just where we diverge. Like, I don't think these late round receivers are going to be consistent week to week. I'm not confident I can find those guys. I think it's a little harder to do, easier said than done. But if Dave is, then that's fine. It's just a difference of opinion.
It's streaming. I'm streaming my number 3 receiver if the guys that I drafted don't work out.
Okay. I will say like an interesting point, because it's something Ben talked about yesterday, and like where that line is. After Dave took Melvin Gordon, we went 10 picks without a running back being selected in this draft. Mm-hmm. Like Ben would like for that to happen after Nick Chubb. I would like for that to happen after Chris Carson. This time it happened after Melvin Gordon, but there's that spot where everyone agrees, okay, there's awesome wide receivers left, and we're not going to take any more running backs for a round.
And just to keep picking this team apart, you go Zeke, Hopkins, Gordon.
Thank God I got 2 other teams in this.
Yeah. Well, but 3 of your next 5 picks were running backs.
You drafted 1 more wide receiver than you did quarterback. You drafted 3.
Well, you guys left Tom Brady for me in round like 13. Of course I'm going to take that. But you know what? You know what would happen if we played this league out? I would end up trading Tom Brady for some mediocre wide receiver. And that would one of you guys will want Brady. He's going to be fantastic this year. You guys are nuts with quarterbacks sometimes. Of course, I'm nuts with them too.
No, you all, yeah, everybody's.
I'm just as
this
guilty as you
podcast
are,
is
but Brady in
nuts
round
with
13
quarterbacks.
is crazy.
Yeah. But no, I'm just saying, like, once you got Zeke and Gordon, then in rounds 5, 6, and 7, you also took running backs. And I feel like maybe if you had just taken one more wide
That's
receiver.
the point Jamie already made. Let's
Yep.
let's move on from this
Right.
team
All
of
right.
Dave's.
All right. Team 4 is Ben. Kamara in round 1, Godwin in
There's
round
5,
2.
6, and 8, by the way, and
Oh,
Philip
5,
Lindsay
6.
was one of those running backs. So kiss my ass, all of you.
Dude, your team sucks. All right.
This team is awesome. It's a great team. Go ahead.
Alvin Kamara in round 1 for Ben at 4. Chris Godwin. And then in round 3.
I took Galladay there, and that's going to be a theme for me, I think, in a lot of leagues. Unless I take Kelsey or Kittle in the second, but running back, receiver is a start that I'm really, really comfortable with this year.
Okay. Team 5 is Jamie. It's Dalvin Cook and Nick Chubb so far. Are you going wide receiver here? 3 receivers and a flex.
No, I wasn't going to pass on Patrick Mahomes. Like Dave said, we go a little bit too crazy with quarterbacks, but round 3, I think for Mahomes is a good spot for him. And I had a fairly good feeling that I would get one of my top 24 receivers in round 4, which happened with Terry McLaurin. I did not expect to take Leonard Fournette in round 5, not to jump ahead, but I'm going to. And then very similar to what we just talked about, like what Ben was saying that Heath did, I just started throwing a lot of capital at wide receiver after that. So I don't love Devontae Parker in round 6, but he was, the next guy that I thought has the chance to still be a good enough number 2 wide receiver. But, then I just started taking guys I like in Johnson Shepard and Deontay Johnson, Sterling Shepard, and Anthony Miller.
All right, Heath, you had the 6th pick, Michael Thomas, George Kittle. Still no running back here. What'd you do in round 3?
Well, I took 3 running backs to the other team, so I didn't want to take any running backs with this team. I took Allen Robinson, and this is the point where I would agree that I took the safe pick. Like, I feel pretty confident Allen Robinson's going to be a top 12 wide receiver in PPR this year. I don't have a lot of hope that he's going to be a top 5 guy, but I really, with this roster, the next round I took Amari Cooper. I think there's a pretty decent chance that I've got 3 top 13 or 14 wide receivers and the number 2 tight end, and it probably won't matter who my running backs are if that's the case.
It won't matter?
It won't matter.
What's that, Ben?
I said points are points.
Right,
Like,
but you
it's
still
like
need to
running back points
start
aren't
running
worth
backs.
more.
But if that's the case, then why isn't Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes the top 2 picks in the draft?
Because you can get Tom Brady in round 13.
Well, exactly. That's the point.
But if you're going to go that
point.
route, like Heath's running backs are perfect.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
think you drafted good running backs. So the team 6 was Michael Thomas, George Kittle, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, and then Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Swift, Tariq Cohen, and Kerryon Johnson. I think you drafted good running backs. I guess they
Hey, you
could
locked
be.
up the Lions' backfield. That's a championship.
No, but I
like
like
Johnson there.
Tariq Cohen in PPR is going
Yes.
to be a borderline starter. Kareem Hunt is a borderline starter, if not better than that, depending on what happens with Nick Chubb. And then he has one of the Lions guys, so he just needs 2 of them. All you need is 2.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of my Dave. That was a good comeback, Dave, with the quarterback points or points thing. It's more just running backs and receivers, I would say, that I mean with the points or points thing. But he's going to get some points out of running back. He's going to give up some points to a lot of his opponents because they might only score him 10 per week sometimes, and other guys might have running backs that can score him 20 plus. But if he has 3 top 10 receivers and the number 2 tight end, he's making up those points somewhere else. Like, it doesn't have to come from running back. You know what I mean?
Heath, when you look at this team, right? Michael Thomas, Kittle, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Swift, Tariq Cohen, Kerryon Johnson. Do you need Robinson and Cooper to be good? Can they be bad and you could still have a good team?
It depends on what you mean by they could disappoint. They could be low in number 2s instead of high in number 2s. And I think I could be okay because I think there's enough upside with those running backs. But no, if your 3rd and 4th round pick are just terrible, you got an uphill battle.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not just because you took receivers. That's just how
Right.
it is for everybody, no matter who you take. If your picks stink, you're in trouble.
I understand that, but I guess when you're not really like diversifying your portfolio, but when you've completely forsaken running backs for the first 4 rounds, I wonder if it sort of gives you less margin for error with those picks because you're going to be weak at running back, so you need to crush it at wide receiver.
I could see that being true, but I think it's more true of the team 2 where I took 3 running backs.
Where you need those running backs to be good.
I think it's more important that James Conner and Chris Carson are good than it is that Allen Robinson and Amari Cooper are.
Yeah, well, fair enough. And you also have Kittle on the team. So.
Right.
All right, Dave, team 7 was Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Derrick Henry. So this is a 2 running back team. Round 3, what'd you do?
Cooper Kupp, safe pick, 90 catches, a lot of touchdowns.
Okay. Ben, Miles Sanders in round 1 with pick 8, DJ Moore in round 2, and then
Mike Evans, who I think is, I'm not trying to bash any of the receivers ahead of him, but I think Mike Evans is woefully undervalued. I mean, I almost feel like you could make a case for him over DJ Moore in the early second round, where I took DJ Moore. I'm just not really convinced that. And I took Godwin in this draft too. I really like Godwin, but I think they're going to get similar targets. Evans is going to get way more air yards. He's going to have the downfield targets. His role is more valuable for producing fantasy points. Yes, Godwin was way more efficient last year, but Evans has 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. I don't understand why this guy goes late third, honestly.
I guess, guys, instead of telling me about the player you picked, tell me why you picked that position, basically.
I already made that point.
What do you mean?
And on my pick 4, I told you I like to go running back, wide receiver, wide receiver.
All
so
right.
I diversified a little bit. Go with it.
All right.
This is podcasting.
Jamie with the 9th pick took Devontae Adams, then Josh Jacobs in round 2, and then
Similar to the other pick 5 where I took Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson's just sitting there. I think it's a good spot to take him. I like the fact that I already had one of my top receivers and one of my top running backs, so it was easy to take the best player on the board in Lamar Jackson.
Okay, Heath with the 10th pick, Austin Eckler in round 1, Travis Kelce in round 2, and who'd you take in round 3?
Yeah, I took Calvin Ridley. And it wasn't totally an easy choice. It was an easy choice for me to take a wide receiver there. I actually kind of thought that I would get Le'Veon Bell by not taking him, but I wasn't considering taking Le'Veon Bell over Calvin Ridley. I didn't get Le'Veon Bell back. Spoiler alert.
No, you almost did. So that's Eckler, Kelce, and Ridley at the 10.
If you had to pick again, Heath, would you have taken Le'Veon?
No, I wouldn't take Le'Veon over Ridley, but I do wish that I had got Le'Veon the next round.
Okay.
All right, Dave with the 11th pick took Joe Mixon in round 1 and Julio Jones in round 2, and in round 3.
I did not want to take Le'Veon Bell either in round 3. The receiver that I liked best was Tyler Lockett. So I took him and just figured I would take my chances with whatever would be there in round 4. Had to get another receiver there because I didn't love the running backs that were left.
All right, so it's Mixon, Julio Jones, and Tyler Lockett. And then Ben had Kenyon Drake in round 1 at the 12th pick with Tyreek Hill. And then what'd you do at the 3-4 turn?
I went A.J. Brown and Odell Beckham. This one ended up being my favorite team. I have a lot of upside receivers, and I kept hammering receiver. And I've talked before, but I think that they're all, maybe a little bit boom or bust, but I think it spreads out some of the variance. I don't think there's going to be a lot of weeks where they all have down weeks. I think there are going to be potential monster weeks.
I feel we can look at this team. I mean, maybe we'll go through 4 picks and then look at the teams and how they shaped up, right? So pick 12 was Drake. Pick 13 was Tyreek Hill. That's how he started his team. A.J. Brown, Odell Beckham are his next 2 picks. I mean, I really feel like you took very risk-reward play. I feel like the only safe player on your team after the first 2 is Jared Goff, who you took in round 13. But it's a volatile team, isn't it? I mean, a lot of potential outcomes here, right? So it's Goff at quarterback, Drake in round 1. You took Cam Akers at the end of round 6, was it? Or the beginning of round 6. Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Odell Beckham, Will Fuller. 4 straight picks, rounds 2 through 5. Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Odell Beckham, Will Fuller. What'd you think of your team? Hayden Hurst is your tight end. Let's talk about team 12 here.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, Fuller's going to be my flex. And between Hill, Brown, Beckham, Fuller, I know people have noted, like a lot of people have noted they have low floors, particularly low weekly floors. They're not going to be consistent. And I was just saying that I think when you have all of that type of upside in a lineup, more likely than not, they're not all going to bust in the same week. But if they do, I'll lose that week. That has to be the strength of this team. But Drake gives me a legitimate number 1. Hurst and Goff, I think, give me plenty of stability at quarterback and tight end. And then it's just a matter of, do I find a weekly starter at running back 2 out of Akers, Breida, Boston, Scott? I think I can do that with those guys. I think I was fine with the running backs in the middle rounds. I still got CeeDee Lamb and Laviska Shenault. If one of these, like if Fuller gets hurt or if Hill's not healthy, I think those are really high upside rookies as well. I agree with you that there's a lot of volatility here, but I like seeking volatility. I think there's a lot of upside on this roster.
All right, and so just to be clear, he's loaded at wide receiver. 4 of his first 5 picks are wide receiver. He's got Goff as a late round quarterback and Hayden Hurst in round 10. So what did he do at running back? This is pick 12. Kenyon Drake in round 1, Cam Akers in round 6, Matt Breida, Boston Scott in rounds 8 and 9, Raquel Armstead in round 12, and Lynn Bowden in round 14.
The only thing I would have done differently is the CeeDee Lamb pick. I would have probably gone running back there just because I think you probably got Lamb a little bit later, especially, again, knowing who you're drafting with. I don't think any of us are going to take Lamb in that spot. And if you whoever it may be, that came, Antonio Gibson, for example, I know you drafted him on pick 8 coming back. Something like that I think may have been better for this team.
Okay, so that's team 12, which is very wide receiver heavy. Did take a running back in round 1 and then 4 wide receivers. Team 11 is Dave's. That's Joe Mixon in round 1, Julio Jones in round 2, Tyler Lockett in round 3, and who'd you take in round 4?
Le'Veon Bell. I hit the draft button. And you know what? In a PPR league, it's not that bad. I wasn't thrilled, but I was okay with it. I mean, Le'Veon's going to be a guy that a lot of people settle for, and I settled for him to be my RB2.
So how did this team turn out? You started your team with a running back in rounds 1 and 4 and wide receivers in rounds 2 and 3, Mixon, Le'Veon Bell, Julio Jones, Tyler Lockett. And then how did you play out the rest of team 11?
I picked up another running back in round 5. I figured that was the way to go because Ben needed a running back. So I took Mark Ingram before he could get him. Not that he would have taken him. He probably wouldn't have, but I wanted to get him anyway. Tyler Boyd in round 6, I was thrilled with in a full PPR. Such a different type of wide receiver there. Really happy to have him as my number 3. Higbee after that. Then James White, who just, really good running back depth, especially in PPR. Jalen Reagor, Tevin Coleman, Damian Harris. I don't know how I got Harris so late, but I did. And then in rounds 12 and 13, Drew Brees and Matthew Stafford. I figured between the two of them, one will start each week. Giovanni Bernard in round 14 to go with Joe Mixon. Randall Cobb. 10 PPR points per week minimum for Randall Cobb this year. He was my last pick.
All right, so let me just ask you this, right? Who do you like better, Josh Jacobs or Derrick Henry?
I think I probably like Jacobs a slightly bit more in full PPR over Henry. I think there's a little bit more of a chance for him.
Okay. All right. So which start do you like better? Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, or Joe Mixon, Julio Jones, Tyler Lockett, Le'Veon Bell?
Julio Jones. I'm happy with how my team turned out.
Okay. So you'd rather have Julio and Bell than Jacobs and Woods.
Correct.
How about the rest of you guys? This is the decision you're going to have to make with these picks here. Like running back, or running back, wide receiver. What did you say, Jamie?
Jacobs and Woods.
Heath, Ben?
I would take Julio and Bell.
I would 10 times out of 10 take Julio and Woods.
All right, you could do that too.
Why are you even asking me?
You could do that too. All right, Heath.
So if I had done that, let's just say I had done that, then I could have had David Montgomery as my second running back, or any of the rookies not named Edwards-Helaire or Jonathan Taylor as my second running back.
No, Dave. You still could have had Mark Ingram.
You would have had Mark Ingram and David Montgomery.
Yeah, you would have gone.
Could have had both those
that would have been
guys.
pretty sexy, right? You go Mixon, Julio, Lockett, Woods, Ingram, and then Montgomery if you want. Yeah.
I'd get 30 catches out of my RB2 and RB3 combined.
But you'd have Robert Woods instead of Le'Veon Bell, who's got like Frank Gore there and a terrible offense. And isn't Robert Woods just a safer pick?
But he's in the best shape of his life. They're saying it.
All
I've
right.
never heard that line before.
And
It really has
so-
me excited.
Those Robert Woods.
Well, look, I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong. Those are the decisions you're going to have to make. All right, Team 10, Heath. Austin Eckler, Travis Kelce, Calvin Ridley, and then you took Robert Woods.
I got that Robert Woods that everybody wants.
There it is.
And he's your wide receiver too.
He is my wide receiver too. This was probably of the 3 teams my favorite. I really like. Are we just going through my team now?
Yeah.
Okay, so my wide receiver trio from rounds 3 through 5: Calvin Ridley, Robert Woods, and AJ Green. I took Jamison Crowder in round 8 just in case AJ Green's not AJ Green anymore. But I was so happy I know Dave doesn't like David Montgomery. I was so happy to get David Montgomery in round 6 as my number. I really didn't think when I went Kelsey, Ridley, Woods, Green that I would have a number 2 running back as good as David Montgomery. Took Deshaun Watson in round 3. So by my view, I'm very good at wide receiver. I'm elite at quarterback and tight end. Oh yeah, and I have Austin Eckler.
And you took Deshaun Watson around 7.
Is that the first time anyone called David Montgomery good?
I called him good when he was coming out.
That caught my ear too. He might be good, but I'm sure Heath was very happy. He's going to be very involved, David Montgomery. So the moral of the story here for Team 10, you start Eckler and Kelsey, and even in a 3-receiver PPR league, there are enough wide receivers. Or he went Ridley, Woods, AJ Green. And he was very happy with that. Still ended up getting Deshaun Watson, Jamison Crowder, who's could be a PPR must start, and then a bunch of high-end running backs, high upside running backs. Alexander Madison. Go ahead.
I think that's a good point. Like, I had Eckler and Montgomery. I wanted to draft some running backs that had the possibility to make me sit David Montgomery. And so that's why I went Madison, Edmonds, and Justin Jackson in rounds 9 through 11.
Okay. Jamie, you had Team 9. That was Devontae Adams in round 1 and Josh Jacobs in round 2, and then Lamar Jackson. And what'd you do in round 4?
I took Todd Gurley just to be a little bit different. If we were playing this out, I would have taken Adam Thielen. But I took Gurley in this spot just to see how much I liked it. And after doing it, I didn't really love it as much.
Okay, good to know. So you just didn't feel good about your wide receivers in this league, or what?
No, I feel fine with my wide receivers. But if this was an actual draft that I was going to play out, I would have taken Adam Thielen over Todd Gurley.
So then what regret do you have? Because your next 2 picks were Cortland Sutton and Marquise Brown. Those are pretty good picks as your 2 wide receivers 2 and 3. And you're a little stronger at running back now with Josh Jacobs and Todd Gurley. It looks to me like the pick worked because I know how much you like Marquise Brown in round 6.
Especially as a 3rd receiver. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just wondering what it was about the Gurley pick that you didn't like.
No, I'm fine with the team. I'm just telling you, like, if this was a draft that I was going to invest, like, I think if you're, let me put it this way. I think you're going to see Todd Gurley go ahead of Adam Thielen more times than not. So I was trying to sort of reflect that a little bit. But after taking Jacobs and Adams and then taking the Jackson pick in round 3, the smarter pick would have been Adam Thielen.
I guess
and then you would have been able to get one of the running backs that we were talking about, Montgomery, Akers, Mark Ingram.
Yep.
Could have come back for them in round 5.
Right.
Probably would have been the pick instead of Sutton. Yep.
I don't know. I mean, I like the way it turned out for you, though. I'm wondering if this should maybe
I don't have a problem with it at all. I like the way
mind.
it turned out also, but I'm just saying, like, as a player versus player and,
Okay.
and upside versus downside, Thielen has more upside in my opinion than Gurley does.
Okay, fair enough. Ben with the 8th pick, Miles Sanders, then DJ Moore, then Mike Evans. Miles Sanders, DJ
Mark
Moore,
Andrews
Mike
in the
Evans.
4th.
All right, Mark Andrews in the 4th. All right, so what do you think about this team?
This is, the other one that I really liked. I didn't like how 4 worked out as much, but this one I liked. Getting Andrews is big. I took Ronald Jones in the 5th, a little higher for my running back 2 than normal, but I'm really excited about the buzz around Jones. And then Gallup and Kirk are 2 guys that I really like as my wide receiver 3 and 4. So I kicked the can a little bit on wide receiver here, but I still got 2 of my priority receivers before there's that drop off after about 40 receivers that concerns me. So I still got 4 receivers through those 7 rounds that I like.
So Matt Ryan in round 10, that's your quarterback. This is team 8. Miles Sanders and Ronald Jones are the running backs. DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Michael Gallup are the wide receivers. Mark Andrews at tight end. And then right now, Christian Kirk would be the flex. Also, Deebo Samuel is on this team. Antonio Gibson, A.J. Dillon, Keyshawn Vaughn, Curtis Samuel, Carlos Hyde, Rex Burkhead. A ton of running back depth. That's how Ben does it. But pick 8 went running back, wide receiver, tight end, running back. Team 7 is Dave's. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Derrick Henry with the first 2 picks. So we'll see how, if you start in the middle of the draft with 2 running backs, how's it going to turn out? Cooper Kupp was round 3, and then in round 4, Dave?
Adam Thielen. Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome.
All right, Adam Thielen was the pick there, and then Zach Ertz in round 5. So, all right, you
That was a close call for me between Ertz and Rojo. I love Rojo, but I figured getting that 3rd running back in a league where I need to get a bunch of guys that can catch tons of passes, I figured Ertz was safer, and the value was great in round 5.
And then you took Dak Prescott in round 6, so now you've got a top 5 quarterback, a top 4 tight end, Edwards-Helaire, Derrick Henry, Cooper Kupp, Adam Thielen. I like this a lot. How did you feel about this team?
I love it. I do think, though, that this is just how this draft went, and our quarterbacks always go so low. I think Dak might have been the worst quarterback value in the entire draft going in round 6, because I think in regular leagues that aren't populated by the 5 of us, I think that you'll probably see quarterbacks go sooner. And I would have rather probably had Mahomes or Jackson in round 3 than Dak in 6. I think Dak will probably be close to late round 4 to a round 5 pick. So I got him 1 round later than he might normally go. But I still like it. I still think it was good. I wish I had waited another round to get the quarterback.
I would rather have Dak in round 6 than in the round 3 quarterbacks. And if you look at our ADP right now, Mahomes and Jackson are going in the middle of round 1. Lamar's a round 2-3 pick.
So Dave,
where's Dak?
Our Dak is a round 2-3 pick.
Oh, okay. So he's going even sooner than I thought he'd go.
Yeah.
How'd the rest of your team turn out? We know, you've got a lot of high-end talent here. So what's the rest of your team? What's their team?
I'm pretty happy with it. I got a lot of guys that I target generally in a draft, and that includes Darius Slayton. Brandon Cooks is also on the team. So those are my top 4 wide receivers: Kupp, Thielen, Cooks, and then Darius Slayton. Jordan Howard is my 3rd running back. Went with a running back run myself in the second half of my draft. Got Naheem Hines, Darrington Evans, Adrian Peterson. And then with my last 3 picks, I tried to get some value. I didn't really care about what I needed for my roster, but I did end up getting that second tight end. It was Austin Hooper. Got my second quarterback. It was Roethlisberger with my last pick. Jeez Louise, round 15 for Roethlisberger. That's pretty insane. Robbie Anderson was my second to last pick, just to give me a little extra wide receiver depth. We'll see how he does the first couple of weeks, and if he sucks, I cut him.
Cool. Heath with the 6th pick. This was an interesting team. Michael Thomas, George Kittle, Allen Robinson, and we talked about this team a little bit, Amari Cooper. So when you start with your first 4 picks, none of them are running backs. How'd this team turn out?
I love it. But that's because I love Kareem Hunt in round 5, and I've got Swift. I mean, we talked about this earlier. Yeah. Tariq Cohen is a fine starter, and if you're not starting him as a number 2, then he's a good flex in PPR by my expectation. I've got Swift and Kerryon Johnson. I also took Duke Johnson and Malcolm Brown a little bit later. And the question you asked, do I need Allen Robinson and Amari Cooper to be good for this team to have a chance? One thing that would help me in that scenario is I did take 2 more receivers in round 9 and 10, Jerry Jeudy, and a couple of rookies, Jeudy and Ayuk. And there's one of those guys could just explode onto the scene.
The nice thing about those 2 rookies is that they're ticketed for regular playing time right away. I don't think you have to worry about either one of them having to sit on the bench or only play 30% of the snaps. I think they're going to be on the field a lot to begin the year.
Last question on this team. I don't know if you had this opportunity, but since you had Amari Cooper, would you have taken CeeDee Lamb instead of Jerry Jeudy? Would that have mattered?
I would have been, I might have. I did not have that opportunity because I think that he went like 2 rounds before Jeudy. But
last pick of round 7.
Oh, yeah, and you took Jeudy in round
9.
Round 9. Okay, fair enough. So that's an opportunity for all of you out there if you want to kind of zero RB it. Michael Thomas, George Kittle, Allen Robinson, and Amari Cooper. And then Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Swift, Tariq Cohen, Kerryon Johnson were Heath's next 4 picks. Jamie, this was not a zero RB team. This was an RB team with the 5th pick. Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, Patrick Mahomes in round 3. So in this PPR 3 receiver league, you go the first 3 rounds without a wide receiver. How did it turn out?
I like it. Again, you can get Patrick Mahomes in round 3. So, he's assuming his receiving core is healthy, a difference maker. I like Dalvin Cook a lot, obviously at 5. I think Nick Chubb was a great value pick in round 2. Getting Terry McLaurin in round 4 was, I don't know, gratifying, but, certainly made me feel a little bit better about this team getting a guy who I think has top 20 upside, who should see a ton of targets coming off a strong rookie campaign. The surprise pick for me was Leonard Fournette in round 5, but I think he fell too far. He's going to fall too far in our drafts. So to get him as a flex option, I think is fantastic. And then it was, like I said earlier, I was just going to throw a lot of capital at wide receiver with my next few picks, which is what I did. Devontae Parker, Deontay Johnson, Sterling Shepard, and Anthony Miller. And then I took Paris Campbell in round 13.
Yeah. Jamie, do you think you have a wide receiver that can't give you an average of 13 PPR points per week?
That can't?
That can't.
I think McLaurin can. The other guys are going to be the question marks, but that's why, you try and take some swings, which I think Deontay Johnson's got a huge upside. I think Sterling Shepard could be the best Giants receiver, as he showed, when he was on the field last year. I'm excited about Anthony Miller in his third season. And then Devontae Parker's, kind of a wild card for me. But if he's anything close to what he was last year after Preston Williams got hurt, then this is a steal in round 6.
Right. I actually love this. This is part of the reason why I'm not going gaga for wide receivers early on, is because you can find guys, they're not going to give you 17 or 18 PPR points per week, but there aren't a lot of wide receivers that can do that anyway. I think that this is a way to go, especially if you don't want to feel naked at running back, even in one spot in your lineup.
Big contrast from Team 6. Team 6 was Heath's. That was the Thomas, Kittle, Robinson, Cooper team. This team did not draft a wide receiver until round 4. So this is what your team might look like. Jamie's starting lineup is Mahomes, Dalvin Cook, and Nick Chubb, with Leonard Fournette at the flex, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Parker, and either Deontay Johnson or Sterling Shepard. And he's got Chris Herndon or Jared Cook at tight end. So very, very different strategies. And Herndon and Cook were his last 2 picks. Ben with Team 4. Alvin Kamara, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay were your first 3 picks. Let's talk about the rest of your team.
Yeah, I took Jonathan Taylor late in the 4th this time around. And early in the draft season, there was times where I was taking him early in the 3rd. And I've mentioned on the show a couple times, it's not that I've moved Taylor down or stopped any enthusiasm for him in terms of the running backs. It's more just a positional shift that I had throughout the summer, where I really want to target receivers in these middle rounds. And he's the pick that's kind of the turning point of this team, where then I get Diggs, who I really like, in the 5th. I get Landry in the 6th. We don't know how healthy Landry is going to be. I wind up getting Hardman and Harry a little later. Those are 2 upside receivers I love. And if either of them hits, and Hardman already might be on his way, I won't really mind that Landry pick as my flex so much. But kind of the point is, taking Taylor there costs me the dominant receivers all the way through down to my flex that I have on some of my other rosters. And I think you need that if you're not going to be dominant at RB2. So either Taylor has to be a monster, or I have to get, Hardman or Harry to hit late. But I don't hate it, but it is a little bit of a different look for me, where I'm less comfortable with how deep my receivers are.
Well, I mean, you could end up playing Zach Moss as your flex. I mean, I know that's not something you would prefer, but if he's the best running back in Buffalo, then that's a steal in round 7.
He might be his RB2 to begin the year.
I liked the late round running backs I got on this team: Zach Moss, DeAndre Washington, Benny Snell, and Ito Smith. I like all those guys.
Yeah, I want to ask you, because we did another draft after this, a non-PPR draft, which will be on the site on Friday. You're still prioritizing Washington over Darrell Williams, even though the Chiefs aren't doing the same.
Yeah, Williams is like a 225, 230 pound back. I think he has the most familiarity with the offense. I think he's probably going to have a role, and I still like him. I mean, right when this news first broke that Damian Williams opted out, I said he's probably going to wind up being the best value. But Washington's a guy who was very good in Oakland last year, can catch passes, played with Mahomes, yada, 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 in college, yada, yada, yada. I think he's the guy that has like upside. If Edwards-Helaire is not really a great guy, he's the guy that could be the pass catcher and kind of the Damian Williams type. So more like ceiling in his weekly outputs.
Gotcha.
The only question I had about this team, and I think you hit on it, the importance of Jonathan Taylor. I was surprised with Taylor as your number 2, that 6 through 8 range where you took Murray, Moss, Hardman, and then DeAndre Washington even. Did you consider a running back like Tariq Cohen or somebody that you could definitely start week 1?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, the Landry pick is probably where I would do that, because I ended up with Hardman and Harry, and they're these upside guys. If either of them hits, they're going to start over Landry. Landry's just going to be a bench guy on this roster. And it's not to say I don't like Landry, but this almost should have been an even more running back early team, where in round 6, before I went with Kyler, or not take Kyler in round 7. Don't take an early quarterback or early-ish quarterback and get a running back there. One of those spots. Yeah, I agree. I think that a guy like Cohen would have made sense here.
Right.
Ben, would you have taken Raheem Mostert over Jarvis Landry?
I probably would have went Cohen, but okay. Mostert, I think maybe. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Actually, I don't know.
Maybe we can make a trade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's your team that we talked about.
Right, yeah.
There you go. Right, so Ben, with the 4th pick, went Kamara, Godwin, Golladay, Jonathan Taylor, Stephon Diggs, and then he went Jarvis Landry as his 4th receiver, but he's thinking maybe he should have taken Tariq Cohen there. Kyler Murray as his quarterback. Blake Jarwin and TJ Hawkinson, tight ends. So late tight ends here, but this was a team that started running back, wide receiver, running back. And he's thinking maybe since Jonathan Taylor's a little risky at RB2, maybe instead of taking that fourth wide receiver in round 6, you grab Tariq Cohen, you grab someone that you're more comfortable starting as your RB2 at least early in the season.
Or just do what I normally do and take another receiver. I mean, I probably would have taken DJ Chark there. And then with Landry becoming Cohen, I probably like that roster more.
Instead of Jonathan Taylor, you're saying take DJ Chark.
Yep.
Okay. You got to have Jonathan Taylor, though. Come on. I mean, if you're doing a 12-team league where you have 3 of the teams and you don't have Jonathan Taylor, then something went wrong. Dave with the third pick. Zeke. We've dissected this team. This is the very running back heavy team. Zeke, Hopkins, Gordon, Metcalf.
He's already trading Mostert.
Singletary, Mostert, Wilson. Can we skip this team?
Like you hate this team, and you clearly hate the next team we're going to talk about. So I think maybe we should just do a few minutes on which team you hate more.
I think I hate team 3 more than team 4. I really hate
team 2. You hate team 2.
Yeah,
How
team
can
2.
you hate team 2 more than team 3? I like team 2 more than team 3.
Right,
and I took
team 3. Team 3 is the worst. Team 3 is
I would trade my team, and it's got Zeke and Nuke and guys I love, and I would trade it for Heath's team right now.
You're giving Dave 3 running backs to start his team. You take that in a heartbeat.
All right, so Heath, team 2 was 3 running backs to start. Barkley, Connor, Carson. Hilton, Keenan Allen, Edelman. Evan Ingram. Preston Williams. Latavius Murray, Mike Williams, Carson Wentz, yada, yada, yada. Rob Gronkowski is the backup tight end, and Gardner Minshew is the backup quarterback.
We drafted this in a spreadsheet. If this was on CBS Sports, it would just be red X's all the way down the line.
Yeah, there aren't enough running backs on this team, actually. I think I want to trade back.
Here's the thing that I think I'm going to defend my team just a little bit, even though this is my least favorite team. I'm not arguing that I think this is like anywhere close to the best team that anyone drafted. I think it's underrated how much wide receiver upside there is here. Like T.Y. Hilton, if he plays 16 games with Phillip Rivers, is probably a top 15 wide receiver. Julian Edelman and Keenan Allen were top 7 wide receivers last year. I've got Preston Williams, Mike Williams, Brian Edwards, Michael Pittman, like young guys that can have a breakout at any moment. I don't think it's all that unlikely that the receivers are okay.
It's not a bad point. It's just so much risk on this team.
But Allen and Edelman aren't doing that again. You know that.
I don't think they probably will. But they're my number 2 and number 3. I don't need them to be number 7. Like if they are number 20 and number 30, and I've got those 3 running backs at the start, that's good.
Yes.
All right. Team 1 is Jamie's, McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then DJ Chark was your 4th pick. So how did this team turn out?
I love it. I'm very excited about the balance that I have here because of the receivers that I got late with Deshaun Jackson, Steven Sims, and Golden Tate, who I think is very undervalued given what he did last year. Josh Allen in round 9 is perfect. Darrell Henderson as a 4th running back, if he hits, that's a steal. And then again, Aaron Jones, we know what he is. But as Heath likes to say all the time with the number 1 overall pick, you get a gift with McCaffrey. And so it's just, do you screw it up? And I don't think I screwed it up. So that's the best part about it.
So he's got Josh Allen and Darren Waller at quarterback and tight end. That's good. I mean, that's not dipping into the late tiers. That's missing out on the elites, but at least on draft day, but still plenty of upside there and mid-tier guy or like second tier. McCaffrey and Aaron Jones at running back, Juju, Chark, Marvin Jones at wide receiver, David Johnson at flex. I would like to get into this another time, but I like from talking to you guys, you 4, Jamie and David Johnson is one that I just never expected. I just figured you would hate David Johnson this year, and I feel like you keep drafting him in PPR.
In round 5, it's not bad because if he does play like the guy, if he produces like the guy that we saw at the beginning of last season, then this is an easy selection because he should have gone sooner.
I wrote about, like, I love this in round 5. I wrote about Johnson today. Like, if he's just Carlos Hyde as a rusher and catches 30 passes, that's basically Joe Mixon from last year.
I like him in round 5 too, but it's got to be at the other end of round 5.
Right. This was the first pick of round 5, but fair enough. All right. Any final thoughts, guys? It's a long show.
Let's go over team 3 again.
Let's do it. The more, you know what, the more I look at it, the more I like it. I know I sound crazy, but The
Clean your
more I look
glasses,
at it, I
buddy.
would sign up for.
Clean your
I would sign
glasses.
up for that team.
Dig in.
I would
do
sign
kind of
in
like the
for it all
Lazard
time.
Perriman combo. Like, if you're gonna do this, at least you got some fun.
Hey, you got
receivers.
90 catches between Lazard and Perryman, so you're good.
You got some downfield guys. They can have splash.
No,
All right,
180 catches between Lazard. and
I'm going to make Dave feel better. I'm going to say Team 7 is my favorite team. That would be.
No, you don't need to make me feel better, Adam. See, here's the last point I'd love to make. If you walk out of your draft and your friends make fun of you because they think your team sucks, but you like your team, it's really all that matters. It's your team. It's your squad. You got the players that you wanted. You should be happy with it. You don't need to listen to the haters. I'm not listening to these haters. What do they know? I'm happy with the team. I've got running backs for the whole season. Does anybody want to trade a wide receiver to me? Please, I'm begging you. I'm not going to be picky. Just anything we can do. Give me a call. You got my phone number.
You probably do. Dave gives out his phone number like candy.
Hit me up.
It's like Halloween every day with Dave's phone number. All right, then we're out of here, but I like Team 7. So check it out. Remember, the spreadsheet is available in the episode link or the episode description. There's a link to it there, and you can see the teams. All right, that's it for today's marathon show. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Mailbag tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.